Hi, Max. Max is our next speaker, also coming from, related to Amsterdam. He's associated to the MODER, a project by the Institute of Network Cultures. He has background in fine arts. He performs, writes, gives lectures, and this will be challenging our idea of the blockchain. Can a blockchain, a transaction-based system, be ever offer a radical social change? If I say that right.
Yeah. Hi. I'm the last speaker of this panel, which is a blessing and a curse. No. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Max Dovey. I'm a researcher at the Institute of Network Cultures, which has been based in Amsterdam, a research department as part of 𝕤𝕠𝕠𝕦𝕙 University, where they publish books and we organize conferences around netism and media theory. And the talk of my first session today is called How Did a Universal Database Become a Tool for Social Revolution? And the short answer to that is, well, marketing, but I'll give you the long answer. Is there a bit of feedback? Can you hear me all right? Oh, it doesn't matter. So, an alternative title also was If Not, Then What, which is the word slogan that's used by a lot of environmental campaigners in the UK to people who don't want windmills on their landscape. People in rural towns who are against windmills as a sustainable energy source. The counter-argument to that is, if not, then what? And that's sort of how I identify myself within the block discussion. And that's why I'm asking whether transaction technology can be a tool for social change. What I'm going to do is present some of the researchers that have come and spoken at MODER in the past, and base my argument about that, and introduce some of the idea around the political values that are communicated with a lot of blockchain applications. So I'm going to take a slice of some blockchain applications, look at art distribution, decentralized democracy, DAOs, and G crisis, and look at how blockchain, somehow some application blockchain conceal their right-wing libertarian political values with this socialist revolutionary rhetoric, which I urge and encourage people not to be misled or misinformed by. So this today is called Fact. Is it Fact, Future, Fiction? I thought it to mention this short publication that we did last year before Money 2. Money Lab, if anyone hasn't heard of it, it's a 2-day conference that we do in Amsterdam. The next one is the 1st and 2nd of December, so if anyone can get it, you're very much welcome. We have a lot of workshops on blockchain, and it started off with what is money, and now is more, closer to the mic, for a language, so a common language in which we can critique finance collectively. So we invite a lot of artists and designers to reimagine what money and finance can be. So one of the speakers that came last year that I'm going to base a lot of the presentation on is David 𝕤𝕠𝕠𝕠𝕠, who published this short book this year. I don't know if anyone has a copy of it, who's read it. The Politics of Bitcoin, Software is Right-Wing Extremism. And what he does in this book is highlight or charter the political ideology of Bitcoin back to the crypto-anarchists and references the cypherpunk movements and how these ideas of liberating the individual from the state or corporate power or centralized power have become the common theme and the popular attitude that emerges from chain or distributed technology. And with this populist attitude that all government power is somehow illegitimate. So a quote from a crypto anarchy manifesto from 1992, and this is nearly 25 years ago, but hopefully you can see just much of that belief in liberating the individual from the restrictions or regulation of the state, corporation, or the centralized power, whatever it was at the time, is now permeating through the blockchain cryptosphere. So I quote from Timothy May: "Just as the technology of printing and reduced the power of medieval guilds and the social power structure, so will cryptologic methods fundamentally alter the nature of corporations and of government interference in economic transactions. Combined emerging information markets, crypto anarchy will create a liquid market for any material which can be put into words and pictures. And just as a seemingly minor invention like barbed wire, which made possible the selling off of vast ranches and farms and land, thus altering forever the concept of land and property rights, so too will the seemingly minor invention of our arcane branch of mathematics come to be the wires with which we dismantle the barbed wire around intellectual property." Unquote. Now, this is 1992, and see how the development of cryptography is leading to an imagination of freedom, of a liberty, not just a libertarian freedom, but a civil liberty, a break from powers. But I want you to just keep in mind the idea of intellectual property, because I'll come back a little bit later on when artistic distribution. So 𝕠𝕦𝕚𝕚 highlights how the use of language used in which to promote blockchain is often of this very left socialist appeal. And what I'm going to argue today is that there's been a convergence of language that speak to both and the right. And a lot of blockchain applications that I encounter, not all, but many, have this fundamental libertarian, far-right anarcho-capitalism within the technology, which make it unable or prevent anyone from producing any but a libertarian anarcho-capitalist foundation. I'm going to quote David 𝕠𝕦𝕚 here. The close tie between capital and the ideas of decentralized autonomous organizations show the remarkable way in which, despite the rhetoric of revolution and democratization, what these offer is an even further intensification of the power of capital to escape legal and democratic oversight. So, simply put, there is a narrative of socialist revolutionary rhetoric that's being applied to a lot of blockchain applications. And you're hearing a lot of buzzwords of peer-to-peer, decentralization, and new forms of democratization, but they're all being built on a transaction-based technology which was founded with this original crypto-anarchist view in mind. So there's this contradiction of political values at play. But let's look at examples in where I think this is most resonant. So the first one is Nation. Has anybody come across this project? I think it's a good example. So what I like to call the social turn in blockchain. So Bitcoin sort of exasperatedly kind of failed at generating an alternative or a accessible alternative currency. You had this social turn into blockchain and the investments and interest into what was possible with blockchain. So we couldn't really design a new currency, but maybe we could design society using the distributed ledger technology, which is very exciting, and I'm very interested in the possibilities. However, a lot of the examples I see are ideas of society based upon a libertarian fantasy. This is a case in point. So, the humanitarian refugee crisis, which BitNation proposes to solve by issuing Bitcoin IDs and identity cards via the blockchain and whole refugees or newly arrived people onto the blockchain. Which the promise of this, or the potential idea that this could, it's deviating or circumventing the state, and no matter what you think about the success in being able to handle the refugee crisis, that's part of it. But the idea that this is a solution, it's techno-solutionism at its word, Evgeny Morozov term. It's very apparent in the BitNation idea that there is a group who believe that this underlying free market will give you freedom. There is no alternative idea. And I just really struggle with how this poses itself as a libertarian project, when in fact it's deeply problematic if you're exploiting reasonable people that cannot seek asylum and offering them this economic viability. Second example, where there is a convergence or confusion or ambiguity about what the blockchain offers and what blockchain actually is within art distribution. A lot of art distribution platforms popped up over the last few years, being marketed towards artists to regain autonomy and take back control over their creativity. And how do they do this? Well, they add their digital art to the blockchain and basically reintroduce draconian legislation like intellectual property, authorship, or commodity scarcity through digitations, which is a ridiculous notion. And rather than create or design a genuine alternative model for creativity, these platforms adapt things like IP property, copyright, and use cryptography, to encrypt law back into the web. Which after 10 years of net art and the White Cube has finally developed a financial strategy to be able to modify net art, and we're seeing kind of post-internet art go into the gallery, it seems a shame and a waste of a technology that promises one thing, but in fact is reintroducing laws of the 20th century, very conservative laws about intellectual property, back into the web, freedom of information. If you want to know more about how intellectual property is being or digitally monetized by the blockchain, I highly recommend Martin Zeiliger's Digital Art as Monetized essay. So my third example, So this is my mood board that I'm sharing with you. So my third example is the way in which block proposes new democratic orders, new democratic social structures. These systems that are created often use the same foundation of which is a meritocratic reward tokenized based system in which might makes right, essentially. So the people that have the biggest server get the most say, they get the most vote. If you're going to redesign democracy, why take the corruption and inequality that we have currently and just recreate it to serve that have the biggest hard drives and servers? That's a question I have for people who think this is a better form of democracy than what we have. If we have an opportunity to redesign it, and we have seen some examples today, which I think genuinely are a lot more interesting, redesigning democracy, and instead of it being the biggest bureaucracy, it's got the biggest RAM. Sorry, that was badly put. So we are encouraged to believe census-based technology enables distributed autonomous governance and offers a more egalitarian representation and is therefore improved democratic system by default, by design. However, the conditions that are encoded into things like DAOs, crowdfunded DAOs, collective smart contracts, or any other tokenized decision-making application incorporate this meritocratic right-wing or market neoliberal principles that are within the system design of these operating systems. If we were able to strip off this ludicrous cult-like libertarian free philosophy and bootstrap a decentralized currency that was based on peer-to-peer, person-to-person, machine-to-machine mining, proof of value or proof of stake, then there might be something of use to anyone skeptical about simply reiterating free market neoliberalism in every new technological innovation. Now, example, I've already mentioned the way in which you buy into DAOs and get more voting. And as we all saw in June with the split child DAO hack that happened, a week before that, on the Hacking Distributed website, there was already an article by Dino Mark highlighting the vulnerability about how you could split child nodes, but also how people can easily get misdirected in a DAO and they could be dead on arrival, so you could already be quite biased within them. So, just to conclude on this point, democracy 2.0 such as this have a great appeal to young or anti-authoritarian or radical actors who think that they can redesign the political system from the bottom up. But generally, these systems being introduced or developed are encoded with this free market libertarian idea that seemingly have native systems of this technology that will somehow design us a fairer, more representative democracy. And I just don't quite buy it. So I'll conclude on a silly Twitter poll that I did last week. I wish I hadn't added the mystery objection, because I think that really ruins it. So to go back to the question of whether a transaction-based technology can be a tool for social change, we've had a lot of people talk about accounting and recording of transactions, and we've seen some cooperatives, and in my mind I can't help but think whether co-ops or social relations work better with someone recording each transaction or coming up with a new way to record each transaction, and whether that quantitative data or that quantitative meritocratic recording of social organization automatically leads us down a fairly quantified path. But to go back to the language dilemma that blockchain applications speak to both a radical left and a radical right, I think that's just representative of what we're seeing widely politically, not tech space, but in this kind of post-truth politicians and post-politics, I like to call it, this kind of anti-establishment populism that is becoming very uprooted in Western democracy with Brexit, a few months ago, and Trump. So there's this populism, like this language. For the first time, we're all speaking this populist language in the blockchain space, where I'm having meetings with bankers and insurance companies, and we're all talking about the same kind of radical anarchist distributing of value, where we previously kind of had different political agendas, and I think that's really interesting. But I think that is, like I said, representative of this populist politics, which is blockchain is not susceptible to, and I think it's definitely part of that too. So, the left and the right are attempting, the political left and the political right, are both attempting to grapple or dismantle something that is probably out of their control, but they're using the same language to achieve a populism. And from a very short time researching and investigating blockchain, I've observed this similar adoption of this for really ambitious projects like the refugee BitNation project that present alternative futures that can no longer, or it's very hard to distinguish where they sit on the political spectrum because they just have this anti-authoritarian decentralized rhetoric or taking on central power, whatever centralized power that is of the time, and the misguided understanding of what regulation they're trying to regulate. But I want to end on a happy note, and I don't consider this entirely negative. I think this isn't something fixed through this type of critical analysis that I'm giving now. I just wanted to highlight this convergence of language I've observed within a slice of the blockchain space. I say a slice because there's big space. And I think it's representative of the time and the collapse of left and right politics, and that could lead to some quite interesting destructive politics, which I'm looking forward to. Thank you.